Hello all, and welcome to the very last video of my video series. This time we're going to talk about harmony, music support system. This is going to have a lot to do with your keys and scale, or I'm sorry, your keys and key signatures. So be aware that this is kind of a little difficult to understand sometimes too. So please do your best with it and take what you can out of it. So what is harmony? Harmonies are just sounds that are played at the same time. Two or more notes played together is referred to as a harmony. Now, harmony can have lots more different notes, but it has to be at least two. Harmony is vertical, unlike melody, which is horizontal, which we discussed. When you think of the word vertical, think about someone's vertical jump. That is how high they can jump straight up off the ground. So harmony is up and down, unlike melody, which is left and right. The main function of harmony is to accompany the melody. We call playing under it. When it is written out, usually melodies are written on the top and harmonies are written underneath. Sometimes different melodic voices together make a harmony. So if two people or three people are singing a melody with different notes, that actually works as a harmony. Kind of complicated to think about. It's called harmonic rhythm. So when you do chorales or hymns, especially in church, lots of voices, they're singing the same rhythm and they're independent melodies, but they stack up as a harmony. This is sometimes called counterpoint, and it goes back to musical texture, which we haven't talked about, but texture is just the thickness or thinness of sounds. The main element of harmony is the chord, which we'll be discussing in detail. So, chords. Chords are three or more notes played simultaneously. Now, chords can be harmony, but specifically, chords are three notes or more played at the same time. Chords have structures. Chords have progressions, meaning they have an order that they go in, and they have functions in relationship to one another and everything else, including the melody. That's kind of a complicated statement, but I want you to understand that chords have a purpose and a structure and an order. So like scales, chords can be classified and identified by their sound quality, which is a result of the intervals within the chords. That is a fancy way of saying, like scales, if you have A major scales, you can have A major chords or A minor chords. The major and minor of the chords are determined by their function within the progression. And they're also named for the scale they are based in, like I just said. So the two general sound quality of chords. Consonants. When something is con, it is with, or in harmony with. And there's dissonance. So when you diss someone, diss is a negative thing. Consonants, so con sound and a diss sound. So the consonant sounds are chord qualities of relaxation or stability. Those chords are consonant. So intervals such as a perfect fifth or perfect fourth are considered more pleasing to our ears than others. Dissonants are chord qualities of tension or instability. So when a chord is dissonant, it hurts our ears and we want it to resolve, meaning they need to become consonant. If I was around a piano right now, I'd bang out some dissonant chords and then resolve them with some consonant ones. So if you think about any horror movie, the E, 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 those are dissonant sounds. And if you think about maybe a movie that has a beautiful, relaxing stream and a mountain peak in the distance, those chords would be consonant. So dissonant chords, our ear wants to resolve them to one that sounds good. These, again, are both relative. So in the eye of the beholder. So maybe something that's dissonant to us isn't dissonant to someone listening to music in Turkey or China or Russia. Likewise, the things that we think sound good, maybe other cultures or other areas of the world think sound bad. So the main chord we want to talk about is a triad. So it's a special kind of chord with 3 notes. Hence the tri prefix. Tricycle, triangle, both have 3 wheels, 3 sides. Our triad has 3 notes. Also called the snowman chord. It's our little snowman. So you can figure it out by using scale steps or figure it out by using intervals. I prefer to use scale steps because it's much easier. So by scale intervals, here's what it looks like. So you can use the root, 3rd, and 5th step of the scale. Play those 3 notes together, boom. In your major scale, when I say, oh, play the root, 3rd, 5th, and octave, that is playing a triad. So in the case of the C major scale, if I take this note, and this note and play them, I get a chord. In this case, it is the C major chord because it is built on the letter C, or the scale step C. Again, you'll see that it goes line, line, line. If I build a chord off this one, it'd be space, space, space. So they are stacked up on top of one another and played at the same time. So you can spell a triad by half steps and whole steps. This is a little more difficult. Just know that when you spell a chord, these 2 notes are perfect, a major 3rd. Between these 2 are perfect 5th. Between these 2 is a minor 3rd. You don't need to really worry about that. I'm more concerned that you know how to find them by doing a major scale. Or if you want to do the bottom to the top, 7 half steps, which is also a perfect 5th. Don't worry too much about that. So there are types of triads. So you can use scales other than just a major scale to create triads. If you find the root, 3rd, 5th of a minor scale, you will have a minor triad. So there are 4 main types of triads. Usually the major and minor are the only ones we're going to concern ourselves with, and mostly just the major one. So there's 2 others called augmented, diminished. So we will spell mainly major chords by scale steps. So here's what the triads look like. They're always stacked in thirds. So they're always line, 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 or if they're on a space, 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 they all have that basic snowman form. Sharps and flats are placed to the left of the chord. So notice that's on the E. That means that E is flat. In this case, these E flat and G flat, those are the 2 flat notes. And these are the 4 different kinds: major, minor, diminished, and augmented. You don't need to know those unless you plan to dive deep into music theory. So, and just like our scales, you can spell these just by altering 1 note. If you have a major chord and you flat the 3rd, all of a sudden you have a minor chord. Kind of neat. So minor triad would have a flat 3rd. We're going to make a major chord diminished triad. You flat the 3rd and the 5th. Now notice when I say flat, you don't put a flat in front of it, you just put that note down a half step, which usually ends up being a flat. If it is a sharp, you go a half step down, it becomes a natural. And an augmented triad has a sharp 5th note. So you want to play around with different sounds, and you got a piano in front of you, take a major triad, you can make these alterations for it and get these weird sounding chords. So build them off of scale steps. So the simple version is play a note, skip a note, play a note, skip a note, play a note. So if you built on the C major scale, there's your C major scale right there. If you built a triad off of all of these, the 1st and the 4th and the 5th would be major sounding. 2nd, 3rd, and 6th would be minor. and the seventh one would be a diminished chord. So, and they take the name of that scale step, and it's just the name of it is the number of the scale step, except spelled as Roman numerals. So, in the key of C major, the 2 chord, there's the Roman numerals for 2, is a minor chord. It's D minor. Minor third, major fourth, major fifth. If it's in capitals, it's major. If it's in little notes, it's minor. And then that's a little diminished symbol. Don't worry about that. That's a little more complicated than I want to get into. And in any major scale, they will have the same quality, meaning even in D major, the second chord would be minor, the one built on E, third one built on F sharp would be minor, the 4 and 5 would be major chords. And the 1, 4, and 5 are the major, always major. That is what our popular music is based off of, is the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord. Every pop song you've ever listened to, classical music, all that is 1, 4, 5. We talk about the blues and we talk about chord progressions, which is a 1, 4, 5 progression. So just know that's what we're talking about when we say 1, 4, and 5. It's just chords built off that step of that major scale. And a couple little extra notes for you. So we can take chords and we can invert them and get different sounds. So when you invert it, all you do is mix up the order of the chord. So in this case, the root is always in the bottom. In first inversion, you take that root note and add it up an octave. So now the third is on the bottom, and that is the first inversion of a chord. Piano players, you'll recognize these. And in second inversion, the fifth is on the bottom. So basically we kept that G where it was and then moved these 2 notes right here up to the top. So these are chord inversions. They're still triads. They're just not in the root position, not in the basic position. We've mixed up the order of the notes. Arpeggios, you should recognize from your scale sheet. So basically, we break up the chord. We call them broken chords. The chord tones are still there, but not played at the same time. So instead of taking this C, E, G and playing them all at once as a harmony, we break it up. C, E, G, C, G, E, C. Da, 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 da. What you're used to playing at the end of your scale sheet. This is called an arpeggio. You can do these with any key, any major scale. Root, third, fifth, octave. Now, chords have progressions, and basically that is an order that they fit in to make them a certain something. In this case, we're using the blues scale. So when you're playing the 12-bar blues, this is your progression, which is your order. You play the C chord, which is the 1 chord. Play the 4 chord for a couple times, back to the C chord, 5 chord, 4 chord, and 1 chord, and then a little turnaround. Okay? You can see the Roman numerals right there. You have a 1 chord with a flat 7. The 4 chord in C major is built on an F, 4th note of the scale step. The 5 chord is built on the 5th note. Notice they're still all going line, 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 or space, 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 with just a little alteration of the 7th note, which is why there's a 7 in that chord. An example of the blues. So this is called a blues progression. When you use the chords in this order, this many times for 12 measures, you are playing the blues. So once the chords are spelled, they're put in a specific order, just called the progression. When you think of the word progression in real world language, when you progress, you go in a certain order from one thing to one thing. When you progress from a child to an adult, or you progress in your knowledge of math, or your progress in your practicing and your playing. So it's the change from one chord to another and the pattern of those changes. This is known as harmonic rhythm, using harmony to create rhythm. Progressions are marked with cadences. So basically they're a point of rest where all the harmonic motions ends. If we were to think about that in grammar, cadences are the musical punctuation marks. They are the period. They separate the musical ideas. Usually this involves going back to the one chord. When you think about church hymns, you have all these harmonies all the way through, but at the very end of the verse, the very end of the song, we go back to the one chord, where we started. Then you know it's the end. That is your musical punctuation mark is called a cadence. Also in church music, when you go amen, is a cadence. So when we decide to write chords, we can write them in shorthand. It's just the name of the chord based on the root. So C chord is a chord built on C, first, third, fifth. It's major, it'll be either be C or marked with an M, so you can write it as C, M, or C major. If it's a minor chord, you just mark it with a small m. So we just flatted the third of this chord and made it minor. And the last two examples are for diminished and augmented chords, which we don't really cover. We're just concerned with major and minor. So the triad is the most basic building block of the chords. They can have more than one note, so musicians have invented systems to express these. A lot of times they will include a 7 in the chord, which is important chord tone and makes for a different quality of scale. There's a system for notes above basic chords. Jazz musicians call these extensions. This is too much for what we're learning right now. But just be aware that chords can have way more than 2 notes, can span more than 1 octave. They can be voiced through different ranges of instruments and voices. Different instruments can play different notes of the chord, but the basic qualities and intervals are still there in the form of the most basic chord, the triad. So now that we've talked about a little bit about harmony, we have a few slides left, but to get credit for this, tell me in the comments your name and your favorite family member, one of those family members that you have good harmony with. And I'm going to leave you a few harmony quotes. For those of you that are my country music fans, this is one of my favorite country music chords. Country music is 3 chords and the truth. Country music, 1 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord, and the truth. You can pause these and look at them if you'd like, but this will be the end of our video series. I will actually post a couple more videos that are not required watching, but for those of you that are musically inclined and you want to get into some more fun stuff, I'm gonna have a little thing on the blues scale and a couple of things that you might be interested in, just to kill time while you are quarantined. As always, I hope you guys are doing great. Getting your homework done, watching lots of TV, and practicing your instrument. So until the time that I see you again, please be well, take care of yourself, wash your hands, stay inside. All right, see ya.